this like the first media tour you guys have had in a while?
Yeah, in a while. I don't know if they've done stuff inside.
I'm Senior Deputy Editor Natalie Krebs, and this week, Editor-in-Chief Alex Robinson goes behind the scenes at the Remington ammunition plant to shed some light on how Big Green is getting back on its feet after years of disarray.
All right, yeah.
If anyone needs help carrying anything, we're going up some stairs.
You just start grabbing components and stuffing them in your backpack?
Yeah. You going in here?
Yeah, we're going in.
So, Alex, you just got back from Arkansas. Tell me about the Remington factory. What's it like?
So the Remington ammunition factory is, basically think of any like Rust Belt style manufacturing plant that you can imagine and combine it with like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. And that's basically the Remington ammo plant, except instead of making candy, they're making bullets.
Yeah, which most of our listeners probably prefer. So where is the plant exactly?
It's located in Lonoke, Arkansas, which is known for two things. One is minnows. They're the largest minnow-producing town in America. In fact, if you've used minnows, if you fished with minnows at all this summer, they probably were grown in Lonoke. And then the place is known for Remington, which is the largest corporate employer in the county. And this factory is just a huge complex of red brick buildings located just outside of town. We kind of went through a security checkpoint gate to get in, and then we just started touring around the factory.
Take this road down here. That's where we make primers. We won't go to the primer building. We got wastewater and treatment. Over here, you'll see some white buildings. That's the ballistics lab. So that's where we're testing product. We'll go there last.
As far as Remington's history goes, this particular factory was built relatively recently, in 1970, right? But that's still 51 years ago. Did the plant seem old, or are the facilities pretty updated?
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both. A lot of the machinery from this factory was actually brought in from the old factory, which was in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And when we were touring inside, we saw a combination of this like old machinery and then some new like high-tech stuff. So, for example, on the old side, they have an 11-story shot tower. And at the top, they have molten lead that they then drop down. And as it falls, it forms into a round lead pellet.
11 stories. Can't be 10. Doesn't need to be 12. So it's a heat transfer equation. So the molten lead, it takes 11 stories to fall and cool. So if you build it 12, you've wasted the space. But if you build it 10, the lead will push when it hits the bottom. So it's hardened. It takes 11 to cool that height and 11 stories to fall.
Then when that lead cools, they sort all the different pellets to find the most round ones by rolling them down a series of ramps. And the irregular shaped pellets just kind of roll off the side, and the round ones roll down the middle. And those round pellets become the shot that they load into shot shells. So, like, that system is, like, literally more than 100 years old. But then there's, like, newer machinery processes, too. They have a new building, which they're using to build 9mm ammo. And that building is full of, machines that are pretty much all computerized. And you could just tell that things were moving quite a bit faster through that building. There were fewer people working there. Like I said, the machines were pretty much all computer based, and they wouldn't say exactly like how much more efficient this new building was, but there were fewer people working there and more ammo coming out.
So from a production standpoint, across all the buildings, automated and traditional, are those workers still getting their feet underneath them, or is the factory already at maximum capacity?
They are turning out ammo. They said they're about 90% capacity or so, and looking to ramp up even more than that. So yeah, they're well into their production. They showed us kind of a series of loading docks where trucks were just waiting. Like they literally had their doors open, just waiting to be loaded up with crates of ammo. And then they were going to haul ass to Anoka, Minnesota, where from there the loads would be distributed out to all the different distributors across the country.
So it sounds like they're shipping this stuff as fast as they can make it.
Yeah, the Remington folks were very adamant that the factory was not a warehouse for storing ammo. They were making it and they were shipping it out as fast as they could.
You see the trucks, products getting loaded on the trucks. We're not storing here. We don't have the space to store it. So it's just in queue to leave.
And, you know, things were moving along quickly in the factory, but it didn't seem like they were being rushed either. One of the cooler things that we got to see was they were doing a lot of ammunition testing. So they would pull a series of loads off the line, you know, completed loads. They'd pull them off the line, and then they would do quality control testing where they were measuring for stuff like pressure and velocity.
Twice a shift. So basically every 4 hours, we're pulling product, and we're going to shoot velocity and pressure on a sample. And after that's passed and deemed good, we'll take it to the next range in the next area over, and we'll shoot it in a real gun. So it's going to be in a jack. We're not shooting from the shoulder. We're shooting it out of a jack to validate that it functions in a gun, whether it's a shot shell load or centerfire pistol. We've got a whole potpourri of different varieties of guns that we can sample from. So we don't just shoot it in all Remingtons.
And if any of the loads started to fall outside of their specifications, they'd have to go back through the whole production line and figure out what was going wrong and how to fix it. And, you know, a process like that takes up a bunch of time, you know, it wastes a bunch of time because those machines aren't running, they're not producing. But you have to do that stuff if you want to turn out accurate, consistent ammo. And that was a big thing they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that makes sense. So why were you at the plant in the first place?
I was there because Remington is at a pretty interesting place in its history right now. You know, it's a more than 200-year-old brand, and it was split up last year through bankruptcy. So Vista Outdoor, which is going to be familiar to a lot of people because Vista owns Federal, Vista Outdoor purchased the ammo side of Remington. And you know, since that acquisition in October of last year, they've hired hundreds of workers to this Lonoke factory. And, you know, they're up and making ammunition again, which is very good news for hunters and shooters during this, you know, ammo shortage. But that's not all that's going on with Remington. In that bankruptcy that I mentioned, an investment company called Round Hill Group bought the firearms side of the business. And they've had some serious challenges getting manufacturing going. Remington also has a lingering lawsuit filed against it after the Sandy Hook shootings. Parents and victims filed a lawsuit relating to the marketing around a Bushmaster rifle, which was used in that shooting. And this week, Remington proposed a $33 million settlement in that suit. Now, it's important to note that Remington no longer owns Bushmaster, and also Remington Ammunition is not involved in that lawsuit in any way. But, I mean, it's a terrible national tragedy that is still associated with the Remington name through this lawsuit.
What's it been like at the factory during all of this turmoil?
You know, on the ground level, for just like making ammunition at Remington, there's just been some high highs and low lows. You know, going back to the bankruptcy, the place was almost shut down completely. Now they're running at like 90% and looking to increase that production even more. You know, a lot of the folks working at this factory have worked there their whole careers. Some of them, like, they work there after their parents have worked there. I got to talk to one of these guys. His name's Ronnie Evans, and he's the area manager for primer manufacturing.
This facility directly impacts the city of Lonoke in a lot of ways. And for this thing to go down was going to hit that town hard of 4,200 people. We had people employed, and we had a bunch on furlough that still was employed but wasn't working. And we was down to about 350 to 400 people here day to day. We was to the point of looking at what we was getting in raw material this week to keep us running next week. So there was some hard decisions we had to make as a leadership team from time to time, what we ran or what we didn't run the next week. Who was going home, or how many days are they going to get to work next week, or there were some tough decisions made for a long time like that.
Yeah, at an already hard time.
And an already tough situation with all the COVID and everything like that too. And then throw this on top of it. Yeah, it was dark days, bub.
We'll be right back after the break. One thing that I don't think is clear to a lot of people is how such a well-known, well-loved company ended up in this position. Like, how did Remington go bankrupt in the first place?
That's a really good question. It's something that all Remington fans have asked with great frustration. And the answer is really complicated, but I'll try to simplify it. The very dumbed down version is this. Remington was owned by a private equity company called Cerberus Capital Management. And the New York Times did a really in-depth investigation onto what went wrong here. And they eventually found that this company made some really risky financial moves for Remington specifically. And they loaded Remington up with a bunch of high-risk debt. Even though the firearms and ammunition industry was really booming at the time, Remington just couldn't overcome that debt that it had been saddled with. And then it had some quality control issues, it had publicity issues, and all of those factors just combined to bankruptcy.
And what did the folks at the factory have to say about the bankruptcy?
So I got to talk to Nick Saxey about this, and he's got an interesting perspective on it all. You know, he's the director of product management now for Remington, but he's been with Remington through the whole thing.
So when you go through hard times like we have, and like I said, I've been here 29 years, and I've seen the worst. We got to the worst of the worst last year, filed for bankruptcy for the second time, so on and so forth. But that was not, and I can't emphasize this enough, that was not a reflection of the employee, right? The employee still was doing what they needed to be doing. And so our new owners recognized that and acknowledged that. And they said, look, if you stuck it out this long and you want a job, you have a job. Come back to work. We're going to fund you. We're going to give you the funds that you need to actually be a fully functioning company again. And we're going to grow you. And we're going to grow you in a way that maximizes our output without sacrificing our quality. So when I think of Remington and I look at it, not only as somebody who's been here forever, but before that, I was a consumer long before I was an employee. I view Remington as a great product at a fair price that gets the job done, which is why Core-Lokt is the best-selling deer ammunition in the history of America.
Yeah. It seems to me that right now in this ammo shortage, a great product at a fair price is exactly what most people are looking for.
Right.
Does it feel like you guys are, kind of reintroducing Remington at the perfect time?
Yeah, for sure. There's never in the history of this company, and this one's an old one, been more demand for our products than there is today. So yes, we are entering back into the market at a good time, and we know that it's still frustrating that you can't find our product on every shelf that it was ever once on. But I'll assure you this, we're making as much ammo as we possibly can, and we're fully ramping up this factory.
So workers are back at the plant. They're making ammo as fast as they can. Some customers are able to buy boxes, but most aren't seeing this return because of the ammo shortage at large across the country. What is Remington doing to announce this comeback?
The job to tell this story of the Remington comeback really falls to Joel Hodgdon of the famous Hodgdon powder family. Now, he's a young, kind of up-and-coming, enthusiastic guy, and he's the director of marketing for Remington Ammunition. And he's been with the company since the acquisition in October.
We're focused on making a ton of product right now, but we got to do that safely.
Yeah.
So, making sure that, we're keeping our employees safe, we're keeping new people learning, we're keeping them coming back and being part of Remington for a long time. I mean, keeping our employees safe and keeping our customers safe, that's job number one.
Yeah.
You don't need a marketing team, man. If the folks behind me work hard and put product out there, you don't need to put an ad in the market. You don't need to get your name out there at all. You just need to put product on the shelf. So that's our focus, for sure.
That focus on ammunition is truly just making ammunition. You visited the ammo plant, not the firearms plant. So What is the story with Remington's Firearms?
That story is a little less clear than the ammunition story. Here's what we do know. So Remington Firearms was bought out of the bankruptcy by an investment company called Roundhill Group. And the new company, they have a new name for Remington Firearms, and it's called Rem Arms.
Do you think the consumer is going to understand that they're two separate companies now?
We got to be careful how we tell that story.
Yeah.
No, I think that the average consumer is always going to connect Remington Firearms and Remington Ammo together, and it's a double-edged sword. I think it's a strength that we have that, not to think about the competition, but the fact that SIG has good firearms and now is adding ammo, I mean, that's a compelling story. And same with Winchester, right? And same with Remington. I think we're the biggest names in the space historically because we've had all that. And so, we are separate companies now, but the Rem Arms folks, they're going to be a good partner for us, and they're technically our licensee, right? Mm-hmm. And there's quality standards in place. And so we're making sure that rifles, shotguns, handguns that roll out of Ilion, if they're going to have our brand, the Remington brand on them, they need to be up to quality.
Previously, the company that owned Remington Firearms before this had laid off more than 700 workers from this plant. So in May, Rem Arms hired back hundreds of workers and reopened this plant in Ilion, New York. They've been working on getting manufacturing going. In early May, about the time of this opening, Adam Ballard, who is the director of product management for Rem Arms, is also a 17-year veteran of the firearms industry. He did an interview with our sister publication, Field and Stream, and that interview was very kind of straightforward, just kind of giving the basics and beating the drum for positive Remington, we're going to make a comeback. But there were kind of three main takeaways that I think all Remington fans can kind of hold them to. One is that Remington is going to focus on its core products, like the 870 shotgun and the 700 rifle. Two, they were going to have guns back on the shelves before this hunting season. And then three, they know that they've got to focus on bringing quality back. Over the years with Cerberus, there were some serious quality issues with Remington guns, and they've got an uphill battle to, bring those guns back to the standing that they once were. So we haven't heard much from Roundhill Group since then, and also it's getting pretty close to hunting season, and as far as I know, there aren't new Remington guns hitting store shelves. So, we'll just have to see on that side. It might be the case that you'll be able to buy Remington ammunition, but you might not be able to shoot it out of a brand new Remington gun, at least for now.
Keep in mind that everyone that's here is here because they want to be here, right? The people that stuck it out and stayed with the company, they want to be here. So what makes a good quality product is somebody who has pride in their craftsmanship. So when you have prideful employees, happy employees that feel like they have a future and are owned by owners that understand the company and the industry, you're going to get better quality product, and that's what we're seeing.
The Outdoor Life podcast is edited and produced by me, Senior Deputy Editor Natalie Krebs. Reporting for this week's episode was by our Editor-in-Chief, Alex Robinson.